musculares. Ya basta de dolores articulares. Ya basta de sufrir.
Con una cápsula diaria del veneno de abejas, volví a vivir sin dolores.
B-Miracle. Llame ahora y reciba 2 meses de B-Miracle en oferta especial. Ordena 2 y recibe 3 meses de tratamiento. Pero si llama ahora mismo con su orden, recibirá la crema B-Miracle de acción inmediata completamente gratis. Para ese dolor rebelde y localizado que a veces aparece. Pero tiene que marcar ahora. B-Miracle. Una cápsula por día. El milagro de vivir sin dolor toda la vida.
Investing in real estate doesn't have to be a pipe dream, but how do you find, analyze, renovate, finance investment properties?
Welcome to The New Health. I'm your host, Jessica Preston, where we speak with thought leaders and innovators in healthcare who are revolutionizing healthcare and making radical change. Today we have back with us James Maskell, author of Evolution of Medicine and Community Cure, health economist. He's been talking with us about community and its benefits with health. Welcome back.
Great to be here with you. Yeah, I'm excited.
So happy you're here. So we're going to switch it up a little bit today, and I know we talked a little bit about type 2 diabetes before,
Yep.
and another concern that a lot of people have is about dementia.
Yeah.
So I was hoping we could dive in a little bit about the new health and your thoughts and work on towards helping with dementia.
Yeah, so cognitive decline and so the end stage of that is dementia is a big deal, and part of the reason why it's a big deal is one, you know, lots more people are getting it, right? The numbers are increasing. I think there's 55 million people worldwide, and that's growing, you know, pretty significantly. And there's some stat that I saw that by 2050, everyone will either be, you know, if trends continue in the same way, you see that everyone will either have dementia or be caring for someone with dementia. And if you've ever cared for someone with dementia, you know that one of the problems is you have to have sort of 24/7 care, and ultimately, like, that means 3 people taking care of 1 person. So you see the numbers, like, it's pretty concerning. And, you know, the causes of it are many, but mainly environmental causes. What's driving the, you know, increase in dementia, and that could be social environment, could be media environment, could be actually, you know, physical toxins and so forth. And I've been interested in this topic for a long time because my grandmother had it, but also I had a moment last year where it brought it really home. That was really powerful. So my father lives in South Africa, and South Africa is literally the other part, you know, side of the world from me. Like, I live in California and he's in South Africa, so, you know, we see each other once a year. But towards the end of last year, I started getting concerned because my regular WhatsApp communication with him had sort of dried up, and I hadn't heard from him for a few days, and I asked some people to check in, and they were like, essentially he had experienced like a major rapid cognitive decline. And I spoke to my doctor, my friend Dr. Christine Burke, and I asked him, like my dad has had a major rapid cognitive decline, and she said, in the cases of cognitive decline where it's rapid, where, you know, normally it takes a long time and it's very slow, if it's rapid, always look for an infection. Mm-hmm. Like, an infection is what's driving it. So I flew to the other side of the world, and she said, look, and see that, and like, go and see my dad. He's in the bed of a friend because my friend had taken him to lunch. He couldn't remember his PIN number. She thought he better not be driving, and took him back to his house, and he's staying in the spare room. And I see him there, and it's like indistinguishable from death. Like, everyone around me, including the doctors and the people who work in palliative care, saying, like, this is just what death looks like. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this day is coming. He's 86, and we'll, you know, we'll do that. But I couldn't help thinking about what my doctor said. I can't see any example of infection. There's no, you know, the doctors are saying they don't see any infection. So I go to his house, his flat, to see that, and there is like black mold in the house. And it had just been a very wet winter in Cape Town. It was December last year. That's like that's the beginning of summer, but like the spring had been very wet, and you could see the mold on the wall, I could smell it, and so I recognized that, hey, this is a rapid cognitive decline as a result of this mold, and that was predicted by this doctor, in America without ever having seen him. And so, as time starts to go on, I think, he's dying, and so we take him to another friend's house, and I'm with him for the next 2 weeks, and we're in a very healthy environment by the ocean, and there's no mold there. And again, everyone around is sort of preparing for death. So I'm preparing his things and dealing with all the admin that comes with being an only child on the other side of the world. And then, over the next couple of weeks, all I can say is that he sort of starts coming back to life, right? Because he's in a different environment, and I'm there, and we're connected, and he's eating, and he's being, bowels are moving, and, the kind of things that happen, when that. And ultimately, no medical professional could understood what was happening, but I understood definitely what was happening because of the connection to this, my doctor there, Dr. Burke, who had helped me with that, and a couple of other doctors that had talked it through. And my dad now, 6 months later, is not 100% better, but he is, he is back to normal in a certain way. Not fully, but he's on the path back to recovery. That is not normal, right? No neurologist that you could speak to in America would understand that. Very few doctors would think that that was even possible. And it just became clear to the doctors there that he doesn't have he's not dying of any disease, just that there was this rapid cognitive decline, and now it's coming back slowly as the environment changes, and some of the protocols and that he's working on. And so part of the reason why I think this is really interesting is because it reinforces this concept that I've heard about through years of being in the functional medicine world, is that dementia is not one thing, right? There are basically 6 kind of major reasons why people get dementia, and ultimately the new health is identifying what was the actual cause that led to this cognitive decline and dealing with that cause, as opposed to drugging the condition. That has never worked.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. Can you talk to us about these areas?
Yeah, so one obviously is obviously sort of infection, and you would say that that there could be different types of infection there, but mold does show up, a lot, because it's like a constant biotoxin in the environment. You've heard people talk about type 3 diabetes, right? People talk about Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. Yes, that is the case, but it's not the case for everyone, right? It's not the case for everyone. It's not the reason why it's for everyone. You see a lot of people with, if they've had long-term exposure to heavy metals, so, coal miners or people that work in aluminium smelting plants or whatever. If you've been breathing in, smoke or whatever that has a lot of that over time, you can see that. And toxins, smoking, that can be, so there's a chemical bucket there. And, there's the hormonal factors. And so the way of the future, the way that dementia will be treated in the future, and what I'm working on right now, is a way that any doctor could automatically see for the patient in front of them, if you put their lab tests in, which one of these buckets does it fit into, and how would you treat that bucket? And ultimately, this is a passion project for me now, because I recognize that, that this has to happen, and that literally no one knows about this. And if you look at the standard of care, if you look in healthcare, there's never been a drug that has reversed cognitive decline, right? The only drugs, and the drugs that are on the market right now, they're slightly better than doing nothing at slowing the progress, right? But you're not going back in the other direction.
Right.
There is now outcomes, and this is from the Journal of Alzheimer's in 2022, Dr. Christine Burke's practice, which is the Center for, the True Health Center for Precision Medicine, where they show an average dramatic increase in cognitive function through a precision functional medicine approach. Now, the exciting thing is right now, if you're listening to this, that data exists and has been published. Right now, the thing that hasn't existed is a placebo-controlled trial. And that is happening right now. And if you go to dementiareversaltrial.com, there's actually a few spots left. You have to live near one of the trial sites, and there's only 6 trial sites, I think, in the country right now. There's a few spots left. But this trial, Dr. Burke is one of those trial sites. And, I can't talk about what's happening in the trial right now, but I will say that in a year's time, it'll be a lot more obvious to everyone that dementia is reversible in the same circumstances. You just need the right combination of tools.
This is a beautiful example of the new health. I love this so much. There's so much fear associated with dementia. There's so much memory decline, not remembering who our children are. I mean, we have this fear. We all know somebody that has dementia of some form. So this is really remarkable news that we could be on a path to reversing dementia at this point in time.
And just to add to that, so there's actually been a lot in the news recently with Sanjay Gupta on CNN and otherwise talking about the Ornish study for dementia. So Dean Ornish has shown that dementia is reversible just with lifestyle, with 4 things: eating more healthily, dealing with your stress more effectively, moving more, and loving more. I think he says stress less and loving more. So these are his 4 pillars, and that just with those 4 pillars, they have been able to reverse dementia and slow cognitive decline and get it going in the other direction in, like let's say about 50% of people that execute on that. In the precision medicine side, you get that 50%, but then you also get this other 30% of dealing with these, these other buckets of cause. And so that's why I said from the beginning, lifestyle is the foundation. You have to do that, and that's a key part of the dementia reversal trial, is building a foundation of doing these healthy lifestyle things. But within this precision functional medicine approach, there's an opportunity to actually understand what has caused the dementia in that person and to reverse it. And like, as an example, in Ornish's trial, there's no plan for mold, right? There's no plan for mold, but in Dr. Burke's protocol, there is a plan for mold. And that's why this is the perfect example of like, lifestyle's the foundation, but there's something special about dealing with it at the causative level that I think is the new health.
And there's a technology piece that is put in this when it comes to figuring out this?
Yeah, the technology piece is really about helping the doctor understand which one of the 6 buckets this fits into, and then how to treat that specific bucket. And part of the reason why the 6 doctors who are in the trial right now get the outcomes that they do is because they've had, in most cases, at least 10 years of sort of generalism medicine, because there's no neurologists in this group, right? Neurologists are, they treat the brain, but this is not a brain disease, this is a whole body disease, right? So they have 10 years of medicine, 10 years of functional medicine training, and then 5 years of extra training in brain health, all of them. And like, we can't scale. I always think about scale, I always think about solving this at the level that it exists. And so the technology is really there to teach the doctor, to showcase the doctor. You put in the labs, this is what's causing it, this is how to treat it. Go get it.
Oh, that's so great. It really helps, and it'll help streamline those physicians. So that's amazing.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, James, thank you once again for joining us. This was fascinating. I love learning about this reversal for dementia. So please tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah, you can see what I'm working at my website. It's jamesmaskell.com, and on Instagram, Mr. James Maskell. And yeah, I'd highly recommend, if you have a loved one who lives close to those trial sites, that trial will shake the ground of American medicine, and there's still an opportunity to be in it for free right now.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. So thank you so much for joining us, and please stay tuned after these messages for our next guest.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753. Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Welcome back to the New Health, and as promised, we have the attachment specialist, Adam Lane-Smith, back with us again today. Welcome back, Adam.
It's always fun to be here, thank you.
I'm so glad you're here. It's always such a good time. So we did have a lot of questions last time we were talking about how the anxious attached person can communicate with the avoidant attached person. So we had a lot of questions about what about the avoidant? What about the avoidant person and their communication with the anxious attached person in relationship?
And I want to say this is perfectly fair of you guys for asking this question. I do get that a lot of, look, as the anxious person, I have done so much for them. You have no idea how much I've given. I love them and I care for them and I give them everything I have, and I'm so exhausted. It feels like they've given me nothing in return. They've given me less than ever. Why do I have to give to them and they never give to me? And I want to tell you, you're right. They have to give to you. You have to build a mutually fulfilling relationship. Today, I promise you, we will talk about how they are supposed to communicate with you, because last week, Jessica, we talked about the avoidant person and their risk assessment language, their business language, and how the anxious person needs to go in, they need to knock on the office door and say, excuse me, can I get 5 minutes of your time? Here is a problem in our relationship that's currently existing. Let me show you the PowerPoint. Okay, this is the problem. It's currently decreasing on happiness and intimacy, but if we do these couple things, it will boost it this way. Here's why that's a benefit to us. Here's why it's a benefit to the relationship. Here's why it's a risk if we don't. Here's a solution I propose. Are you willing to invest in this with this time? And yes, I am. Excellent. Let's do this. And that soothes the avoidant person. It brings them in, but it sounds exhausting. It sounds soulless. It sounds completely disgusting sometimes to anxiously attached people. They don't communicate with that risk assessment language. They communicate with an emotional language. And you've probably met people who communicate more emotionally.
Yes.
Yeah, and I bet people at home have as well. What is emotional language then? Emotional language is more things like that. When you say, Jessica, I'm not going to leave you. Jessica, you mean a great deal to me. I will always do what is right for you. I promise you. I will always have your back. This is more of emotional language. It's saying, I need to feel loved in our relationship. I need to feel loved.
Is this the avoidant saying this?
This is the anxious person saying this.
The anxious saying this to the avoidant?
Well, this is an emotional language. So many times avoidant people don't have this language because the anxious person says, I just need to hear that you're not going to leave me. And the avoidant person says, well, in the grand scheme of things, the odds are that I probably will. So, and that's a terrible feeling to have that experience. So the risk assessment language is not soothing for the nervous system. It does prevent spikes in the nervous system, but it doesn't soothe the nervous system, if that's the difference. So risk assessment language prevents spikes. Emotional language brings down the cortisol levels and calms. So I need to feel loved in our relationship. This is perfectly valid to say this, but you have to make it measurable, okay? I need to feel loved in our relationship. Now, here's 2 things that help me feel loved. And here's how often I need them. Is this something that we can do? This is an emotional language. Avoidant people need to learn to speak this emotional language, okay? It's hard for them because it feels like lying. And that's actually why they don't do it, because it feels like lying. Hey, you know what? I just need to hear that you love me. Well, I feel positively when you're in my presence. I don't necessarily know what love maybe feels like, and I'm afraid to say it because then you will assume that I will always love you, and that might hurt you in the long run. So I like you very much and you're special. And that's not what I need to hear. Mm-hmm. Well, please tell me you'll never cheat on me. Well, that's really hard to promise because I'm only 35 years old and I could live for 60 years. And what if I make a poor decision and I have violated my promise? Well, I cannot promise that I will never cheat on you. And no, you need to be able to say, you know what? I will do everything in my human power to make sure that I am never unfaithful to you. That is enough. That is close enough to an emotional language to be able to say that. Avoidant people need to understand that even just reassuring them you will do your best, that you are going to operate with the best information that you have. I will make sure that I am not going to hurt you. And if it ever does happen, and you can give that context, if it ever does happen, I will work with you to make it better. Now that's an emotional language that an anxious person can understand. If avoidant people can do that, it prevents the anxious person from spiraling and spiking and then chasing them and demanding approval. And that's where most avoidant people and anxious people have a problem, is the anxious person says, please, please help me feel loved, help me feel better. And the avoidant person says, I have no idea how to do that, and it sounds really risky, and I don't want to lie to you.
Yeah, so for the avoidance then, learning the emotional language, such as I'm going to take everything in my power to not hurt you, when the anxious is asking, please just don't hurt me. Mm-hmm. And then the anxious needs to avoid spiking, like saying things that are going to cause a spike in those avoidant people. Mm-hmm. I like those 2. Those are 2 very simple ways to look at this. When it comes to, as I said before, I like scripting things for the anxious. Mm-hmm. What is one phrase that would be an introductory phrase for a conversation like this, and same for the avoidance?
Great questions. I get this all the time. So my coaching clients always say, well, Adam, that's great in theory, but what do I say?
Right.
And so we have to script in sessions together, yeah, what your next text to your husband will be, or whatever it is. But the number one thing that I always tell to anxious people first is do not, for the love of God, do not spring this on an avoidant person and simply walk in one day speaking to them in lawyer language and business language and just hoping it will go great, because the avoidant person is so finely tuned to sensitive changes, and they will go and they'll spike off out of control. They'll get even worse. They'll be aggressive and terrified because they're afraid you're about to leave them or call a lawyer, or they have no idea what's about to happen. It will get worse. The number one thing that you actually have to do, let's script this, is the anxious person going and saying, I've noticed that when I ask you questions, it seems like it makes you nervous. When I ask you for things, it makes you scared. And maybe scared isn't the right word, scared is an anxious person word. But when I ask you for things, you seem confused. So I think what's happening is I'm using a very imprecise, more emotional language. And I'm going to try my best to use more of a language about like risk and measurable things and clear numbers so that you can understand what I'm needing, and then you can choose to agree to it or not. But that way you'll never feel like the goalposts are going to move, things aren't vague. Will this be helpful? And the avoidant person probably will say, don't say, will this be helpful? Because I'm correcting myself right there. Does it seem like this is a good place to start? And the avoidant person will say, yes, we can begin here, and we will reassess at 90 days. And that's fantastic. Do that. But go in and have that conversation with them. And the reason why is, yes, it sets them up so that they understand what you're about to do. They can collaborate with you on it. But then it shows them that you care about them enough to help manage risk. The anxious person, you must visibly show that you are helping them manage risks in the relationship instead of just being a risk. If you manage risks, you have their heart in the bag.
That's amazing. Is there a way, do you find that people don't know if they're anxious or avoidant?
They usually are confused when they go look at other creators or people that are out there just kind of talking about it. And they come to me and I say, here's the test. Do you think that you are the problem and you are an unlovable piece of slime? That's usually anxious attachment style. Do you have a low self-esteem? You do not feel lovable and it feels like people are going to abandon you. Okay, anxious. Does it feel like other people are untrustworthy? Maybe you don't hate them, but when people get stressed out, they will leave you. You don't think you're the problem, but you are concerned about rejection and maybe attack from other people, so you keep everybody at arm's length. That's more avoidance style. Are you the problem or are they the problem? Which one is it? That's the easiest split.
Okay.
Now for the avoidant person, because you asked me how to script.
Yes.
They go to the anxious person and they say this, okay? Avoidant people out there, if you have an anxious wife sitting on the couch right next to you right now, here's what I want you to tell her. I never, ever, ever want to lie to you or do anything that will hurt you. So I hold back from saying emotional things to you. I am going to start offering you my honest perspective about how I feel, but I'm also going to temper that with concerns and risks that I see. Please understand when I do that I'm not hedging my bets. I'm actually trying to take care of you by alerting you to the risks that are happening. So this is how I feel, and here are some risks that I can see. Could we manage those together? If the avoidant person can do that, there's so much emotional language, you probably felt that, mixed in there.
Yeah.
Right? I am going to work with you, it's going to be collaborative, but here's where I'm at. Even just providing the context. Anxious people go at you with a crowbar and try to pry you open to figure out what's happening inside that robot there. And when the avoidant person volunteers context like that, it is the deepest version of trust that an anxious person could hope for. So providing more context about why they're thinking and feeling the way they are, absolutely mandatory.
So it sounds like for the anxious avoidant, the anxious attachment, the avoidant needs to start learning that emotional language to speak to their anxious counterpart. And for the anxious language, it's to temper that emotional language and to speak of it more in that business term, but maybe not cold like in the office.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you can do those two approaches, then what's fantastic is you can marry them together and start blending them in relationships. So then you can say, I need to feel loved. The anxious person can say, I need to feel loved. And the avoidant person doesn't go and try to leap out a window and hotwire a car to escape. The avoidant person can say, okay, what does that mean? Can you help me make that measurable? What would make you feel loved? Because I don't know. I don't really have that experience. And the anxious person says, okay, well, these are 2 or 3 things that help me feel loved. And the avoidant person says, okay, how often do you need me to do those things? Because right now I'm imagining it's 15 hours a day. No, it's about 15 minutes a day. Oh, okay, well, that's simple. Why is that important to you? Help me understand why that makes you feel cared for. Well, these, and this, and this. Okay, what do you think will happen if we do that for the relationship? Oh, well, this and this, more sex, better sex, we'll be happy, everything will be incredible. Wow, that sounds like a pretty smart investment. Yes, I am happy to help you feel loved. That makes perfect sense to me. Please show me how to do that. I can do it in the next 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
If you can build that, done.
That's great. So, and then an intro conversation, I'm presuming would be something like, hey, do you have a little time? I'd like to speak with you about, you could say this to even our people that are in the audience now. I'd love to have a conversation with you about our attachment styles. I'm just curious to learn more about you and about where I am and see how we can communicate better.
If your partner's open to learning about attachment, absolutely. So if you're both watching this together, that is a great opportunity. One caveat to that is if they're avoidant and they haven't learned about attachment yet, you are now diagnosing them, saying something's wrong with them, and saying that they have to stop surviving to just try to just buckle down and feel feelings instead. So that's a great opportunity right there. If you guys are watching together, if you're not, instead say, I would love for us to talk about a way that we can relate better to each other, be more honest with each other, and then build a great relationship going forward that can be sustainable and fulfilling for both of us. If you can use that language, emotional and logical at the same time, both sides love that.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Adam, for being with us again this week. Join us again next week when Adam comes back to speak with us more about attachment styles. And we'll be back after these messages with our next guest.
If you turned 65 recently like me, It's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you. Call 800-749-7781. That's 800-749-7781. Call now.
Investing in real estate doesn't have to be a pipe dream. But how do you find, analyze, renovate, finance investment properties without getting ripped off? My name's Andrew Glisson. In 4 short years, me and my team built a portfolio of 200 rental properties in multiple cities as a hobby while working full-time. We took all of that experience and built a mentorship program called the Victory Strategy to unlock every step of investing in real estate. If that sounds like the opportunity you've been waiting for, look us up at thevictorystrategy.com.
How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99, and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
Welcome back. We're back today with Dr. Heather Gessling of Gessling Family Wellness. Thank you so much for coming back with us today.
No, excited to be here. Thank you.
So last week we were talking a bit about mainstream medicine and how you're getting people off of some of the pharmaceuticals, and there are some that you can, and that's really exciting. Sometimes you can't, like when working with hypothyroidism, that's more of a struggle. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about one of the pharmaceuticals that you think is most detrimental when it comes to health.
Well, the top 2 I would say are statins and then proton pump inhibitors. And proton pump inhibitors, I think we talked about statins before, but proton pump inhibitors, definitely one of the most toxic medications out there. And what's unfortunate is that they were pushed and promoted as completely benign, right? As these are only good for you. They do no harm. And what we found several years ago was studies that were coming out that showed those that were on proton pump inhibitors were at risk of osteoporosis, at risk of development of pneumonia, at risk of a C. diff infection, which is a bacterial infection and overgrowth of the gut that can cause severe diarrhea. And really, this opened up a lot of people's eyes that, you know, pharmaceuticals hardly ever come with no cost. They almost always have the downsides.
Proton pump inhibitors, so PPIs like Prilosec,
correct,
Prevacid,
Nexium, omeprazole with the generic, and esomeprazole. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. So proton pump inhibitors are the highest level, essentially, of acid reducers. You have your baseline, sort of as needed, your TUMS, which is calcium. You have your next level, which is your H2 blockers. That'd be like your Pepcid, your famotidine, Zantac type medicines. And then you have the third level, which is your proton pump inhibitors. And when patients are unfortunately prescribed proton pump inhibitors indiscriminately by their family medicine provider, by their internal medicine doctor, by their GI. They're just basically thrown to the patient as, take this, it's great, it's going to help you. And they don't understand that once they've started that, it is a really difficult process to get off. It is not impossible, and I don't think at this point in time I have a patient yet that hasn't been able to get off of it once we start that process of getting off of it. But it's not easy. You can't just like one day stop it. You will get really bad sort of rebound type reflux. It will be a really uncomfortable, unbearable process. And so what I do in my practice when patients are on those is we do a taper, and we can kind of talk about that. But the reasons why those medications can be so detrimental is because they lower the acid level in your stomach, in your gastric area so significantly that you no longer have great absorption of nutrients. You're going to absorb some nutrients, but it's not going to be anywhere like it was when you're at that certain pH. You're not going to be killing off pathogens like you were before, which is one of the reasons why you have increased risk of pneumonia and C. diff. And then when you don't increase nutrients like magnesium and calcium, then it leads to osteoporosis. And so whenever you have something that's going to alter your own body's mechanisms, normal processes, you're going to have adverse events. And we need acid in our stomach for all of those things. We also need acid because it helps trigger closure of the gastroesophageal sphincter, which is important in reducing any type of backflow up the esophagus. When you have reflux, we should take it as a sign that there needs to be a change. Maybe that means you need to eat differently and less carbs and less processed foods. Maybe that means you need to eat less. Maybe that means you need to have weight loss, because pressure on that sphincter, just from the increased pressure in abdominal cavity from weight, will increase your chance of reflux. Maybe it means you need to not eat late at night. Maybe it means you need to have less caffeine, because that can affect that sphincter. Maybe it means you need to have less carbonated beverages, because that expands the stomach and can affect the closure of that sphincter. And so whenever you have heartburn, take it as a sign and don't just treat it with a medicine, because the medicine itself can be very, very damaging long term. So whenever you're trying to wean off of, and I'm not giving medical advice, you need to talk to your doctor, but if you're trying to wean off of that type of medicine, it takes weeks and months, because your body has to adjust back and respond to that acid level again. And you have to do all of those measures that I mentioned earlier: reduce caffeine, reduce carbs, reduce processed foods, reduce carbonation, don't eat late at night, eat less volume of food, don't overeat, lose weight as you do that taper. But you can use other types of measures like the H2 blockers to help wean. And in fact, there are much less side effects associated with those lower level acid reducers like Tums or H2 blockers. Although we wouldn't want you to have to be on that long term, you should try and get to a point where you don't require that. There is research that has shown also that whenever you are on a proton pump inhibitor, you also increase your chance of some of those esophageal diseases like Barrett's esophagus. And gastroenterologists, they just put patients on these PPIs, almost every single one. If a patient goes for a scope or a colonoscopy, it seems to be without fail that the recommendation is to go on a PPI. But they're not realizing that acid in your stomach is for a really good cause. And when your body doesn't have the ability to handle the pathogens in your stomach, that in and of itself can lead to bad changes in your esophagus. So you may not be burning, but you're not dealing with those pathogens, and you're also basically not getting good absorption of nutrients anymore.
So when we have those symptoms, you educate your patients and say, maybe have smaller meals, don't eat close to bedtime, watch what foods you eat that might cause you to have more symptoms and avoid those.
That's right.
And what else can people do?
Yeah, so I think that people in general should just not resort to a pharmaceutical. I think that they need to say, if I'm having this symptom, this sign, I need to figure out what it is that's triggering it. And that's just not taught or that's just not recognized in, you go to the doctor. First of all, the doctor doesn't probably have time. They don't have time to go through that whole list. What they have time for is, I'm going to recommend this medicine you can get over the counter, I'll prescribe it, and it will fix you. And it does fix the heartburn symptoms really, really well. But long term, it's really awful for you, and you're not fixing the problem that led to that that initial symptom.
I love the way that you practice medicine. You're asking the why, and that's what we need to get back to in medicine. Is okay, you're having these symptoms, but why are you having these symptoms?
Exactly.
Why do you have this diagnosis? Why are we here today?
Yeah, right.
So what do you do for checking? Do you do, so I know there's a lot of acid refluxes because of hypochlorhydria, low stomach acid concentration. So what do you do? Do you educate in that space?
So I basically I like to recommend whole foods, healthy eating, an intermittent fasting type thing where you aren't overeating. And I like to focus on, and I do know that a lot of patients can get relief from some of the natural remedies like apple cider vinegar and betaine can be helpful. But in general, basically just realizing that it's about what you're putting in. And I missed the opportunity to kind of touch on osteoporosis. And osteoporosis is another condition where pharmaceuticals are just thrown at it. And, all the big names, the commercials you see, like, this is gonna fix you. Well, maybe. You might get an increase in that bone density number. But how is that bone density? Is it as elastic as it was before you did those pharmaceuticals, or is it more likely to have a fracture or a break, which is what we've seen with a lot of those different pharmaceuticals. With osteoporosis, what I see is that I can get increases in bone mass, bone density with using vitamin K2 because it helps bring that calcium into the bone. And a lot of patients don't know about the incredible significant impact that vitamin K2 has on their health. It can help with cardiovascular health and improve bone density at the same time. Always take it if you're taking D3. You should never take D3 unopposed without K2. But taking vitamin K2, specifically MK7, and then also a small amount of calcium. I like to just prefer to get calcium in the diet. A good amount of vitamin D3, probably 5,000-ish units. And then magnesium is a huge vitamin that can help with bone mass density.
That's so important. Thank you so much for all of that. Everybody at home, please make sure that you review and look at all of those again and watch this episode again, because it's very, very important that those are in your general supplementation. Of course, check with your medical provider before starting anything new. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah,
I would love for you to tell everybody how they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah. So I have a direct primary care practice in Missouri. It's at GesslingFamilyWellness.com is where you can find me. And then I'm also in a partnership, Healing United, and we do free webinars to help with detox. And you can find us at www.healingunited.today.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll see you next week.
Yep, sounds great.
All right. Welcome back after the next messages for our next guest.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to. So make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you. Call 800-749-7781. That's 800-749-7781. Call now.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
And we're back with the New Health, and back with us today is Dr. Cheng Ruan from the Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thanks a lot for having me here.
So today I would love to speak a little bit about healthcare and AI. I know there's a lot of fear in that space on both sides, especially for patients and wondering what that might mean, and providers for concerns of how AI is going to integrate for their work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to kind of address the elephant in the room, which is the fear of artificial intelligence. So AI has been around for decades, to be honest with you, right? And even in the MTV era, where they shot the original Real World, and the original TV programming algorithms were teaching them what scenes to shoot and how to keep the viewers engaged. So the TV programs are already kind of manipulated at that time, and even filmmaking right now is quite different. And the quickest way to affect somebody is visual and auditory stimulus, right? Mm-hmm. That's what TV is. Now it's computers and such. Well, fast forward to now, I think people really are starting to understand AI, and therefore they feel it. They feel it and they fear it, actually, is because we have social media algorithms, TikTok, YouTube, et cetera, right? And plus, we now have the ability to harness it in its own raw power with things like ChatGPT, Claude 3.5, and all these different what we call large language models. So large language model just means that this is a system that's learned from all human language. And so, but the thing is, like, AI is used in marketing a lot. It's used in banking systems and finance. Why isn't it used in healthcare very much? Because healthcare really has to be updated. And so about a year ago, my good friend, Dr. Ravi Hariprasad, which is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, and also a brilliant tech engineer, really famous for creating the original engine that is running Find My iPhone. A lot of people use that, right? So we teamed up together to make our initial version of this that runs the healthcare system. And so it's called Intuitive Mental Health, and it's really designed to tease out senses of isolation and loneliness in people. When we first ran the program, we had a conference called AI in Healthcare about October of 2023. We released the first 3 cases, and we found that the AI was impeccable at analyzing the tone of how people were speaking and potential suicidal ideation, mental health challenges, and et cetera, right? I thought I was pretty good, but the AI is better. So, but what it does is that it elevates my role. I can take care of things earlier. We can create systems around people. So did we find people who I've known for years who had daily domestic violence that I never asked about? Yeah. Do we find people who had a lot of planning when it comes to suicidality? We found someone who just bought a gun, and the AI teased that out. But the thing is, the AI is not just there. The AI is actually enhancing the interviewer. So most of these patients were being interviewed by a health coach, not a physician, initially to get a sense of what they really want. The AI is able to do that. Plus, when patients come in with 300 pages of data, which we have, like hospital systems and records, in 15 seconds, the AI can analyze it. I can ask the AI, hey, give me the gist of this, like what I really need to know, right? So it helps retrieve the information. It's called augmented retrieval, or retrieval augmented data sets, right? So that's what the techies call it. And so that's just start of it. And now AI has completely transformed healthcare because AI scribing is doing a better job than human scribing now, and it's actually far more detailed. And now when doctors communicate with the notes, all doctors want AI-generated notes now when it comes to progress notes, so we can collaborate, communicate with the patients. Like the old typing stuff, like no one likes it anymore because there's so much uncertainty around it. I think it leads to the embetterment of the actual healthcare system in its current state right now.
So I went to a conference not that long ago about AI in healthcare, and I know a concern that a lot of providers had was, what if there's an error? But the truth is that AI has less error than human error. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this is a phenomenon called hallucinations, and AI hallucinations are a pretty common thing, especially out of the box like ChatGPT and stuff like that. But believe it or not, we as a system at Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine and integrating with Intuitive Mental Health and my business partner Ravi, we've come up with AI systems that develop that has little to almost no hallucinations, which is great, right? But the hallucinations also is because the AI is taught a certain thing. The AI is taught if something is right or wrong. So if the AI is taught something is right or wrong, it will make stuff up.
Okay.
But what happens is that you can prompt the AI to have different value systems. You can teach the AI how to think, and my buddy Ravi taught me this. Once you teach the AI how to think, not what to think, it's a game changer. And so what we did is that we allow the AI to learn from philosophy, ancient philosophy, that there's no right or wrong, there just is. I'm Chinese, I'm a big fan of the Tao. The Tao Te Ching is the book, which is a philosophy that there's no right or wrong, there just is, and everything is a pattern, everything happens because of something else, but the universe will kind of correct itself. So when that happened, and the AI understands that concept, philosophically, the AI, almost like the AI doesn't need to lie. It doesn't need to hallucinate anymore, right? And so effectively, that is what created the first version of AI that I created for physicians, called the Life Formula. It actually can be found on physiciantransformationinstitute.com. Halfway down, you can access the Life Formula, where sequential questioning the AI, so it's able to, it's almost like a therapist, if you will, right? It's able to kind of tease out what your subconscious thoughts are. And now that's turning into a new company called superconscious.io, which is a website you can go to, which is sort of our direct-to-consumer version as well. And so the AI that we see right here, we don't want it to be at the mercy of these large companies, whether it's Meta or whether it's OpenAI, et cetera, et cetera. There are ways that we can utilize this for the better good. And in healthcare is a really brilliant time to utilize these AI systems.
So for those of us that don't speak AI, so what you're saying is these hallucinations are basically ways that AI would make up answers.
Yes.
And that's the fear space, is that
Yes.
AI is going to make up the answers.
Correct.
So we are finding ways now with AI to eliminate that hallucination, that thing that is the made-up space.
It's getting there.
It's getting there.
Almost perfect.
That's so good. And almost perfect is what I think people need to be aware of is so close to perfect is better than a lot of human error. You know, providers that are on for 12-hour shifts or longer, or they've, you know, their brain is in a bunch of different places with different patients.
Well, I made a huge error yesterday. So I made a huge error yesterday because I was going to order an imaging that's already been done, but it was just tucked away in the data somewhere, right? And but the patient has some mild dementia, so the patient doesn't know what's been done. Mm-hmm. If I were to order it again, the patient would expose to more radiation, mm-hmm. and guess what? Medicare is going to deny coverage, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're not going to cover this, and why did you order this imaging, right? But because the AI is already grounded or learned from the patient's data, is able to stop me and say, hey, by the way, this was done 11 months ago. I'm like, oh, thanks to AI. I appreciate that, right?
That's great.
And so I'm making errors on a day-to-day basis, but it's actually being picked up. Now, I have no problem making errors as long as I learn from it. And I'm learning that the reliance on technology, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's not going to replace any jobs. I'll tell you that right now. It's not going to replace any jobs. It'll actually create more jobs and elevate all our roles within the healthcare system, whether it's a medical assistant, front desk, back office, billing, or myself. It elevates all our roles.
And there will be some training involved. I know that for all of us in the technology, especially those of us that are a little older, you get us in a training space with technology and we kick and scream a little bit, but the training seems acceptable, doable?
It's actually really easy. It's very intuitive, and we have to see the AI as an all-knowing body, if you will, and we have to not ask it questions that are below what it actually is. And as my friend puts it, Dr. Hari Prasad, if you have to treat the AI like you're seeking out a guru at the top of a mountain in the Himalayas. You can ask it one question. What would you ask? You're not going to ask it to, hey, you know, give me a recipe on something, right? But what you can ask it is, I would like a recipe because I don't feel like my health is that great. Can you help me explore these feelings that I have, right? And so that's what the intelligent actually is, right? It allows humans to ask higher quality questions. And that's the brilliance of AI coming in.
That's great, and it sounds like you now have a system where it's helping you find and discover those underlying emotions that your patients are experiencing to help it bring to your clinical mind so you can keep it in mind.
Absolutely, and it's retrieving valuable data from the medical records. Even though it's hundreds of pages, it presents it in front of me also.
That's great. And how are the patients receiving this?
It's good because what happens is right after we're done, patients are receiving automated AI like summaries. Here's what we talked about. Here's the action items. Here's what we referred you to, and it's actually written in the patient's speaking levels. If the patient's speaking at a 5th grade level, it'll write at a 5th grade level. This patient is a college professor, it'll write at that level as well.
That's really incredible. So they probably feel more seen, more heard, more taken care of.
And more certain, right? And it probably reduced our messaging and our volume of phone calls by about 50% once you have that impeccable of a summary. And guess what? The whole family's in on it. They can take that to their doctors. And some of the AI summaries are over 30 pages long that we have for people, right?
Wow, yeah.
But it's grouped in order where everything is really easily understandable, and that's what makes healthcare brilliant, is the collaboration. We really have to collaborate more as a healthcare system.
That's incredible. This really truly is the new health.
It is the new health, yeah.
It is. Well, Dr. Ron, thank you so much for being with us again today. Will you please let everyone know what you're working on right now and how they can find you? Yeah, what we're working on is continuous development of the artificial intelligence. So I have a blog on LinkedIn called Rebuilding Healthcare. My clinic practice is Texas Center for LifestyleMedicine.org. You can find me on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. Just search my name, Cheng Ron MD. And for those physicians who want to know about AI, we have a whole online course on it with hours of content at physiciantransformationinstitute.com. That's incredible. Thank you so much, Dr. Ron, for being with us again today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for the New Health, and please join us again next week when Dr. Ron will be back for his last episode with us. We'll see you then.
This has been a NowMedia Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-3